it's Monday, March 11th, 2024, and I am in Project Risky Business, my $4,000 1985 Porsche 928 barn find. This is my latest installment of Grime Time with Rudy, my weekly garage vlog. What did I do in the garage last week? So this covers all of my activities between Monday, March 4th, and today, March 11th, 2024.
Stay tuned.
If you watched last week's video, the primary focus was on actually Sunday the 3rd, where I repainted the front bumper, and I took you through that. This week, I had to allow it to cure for a couple of days, at least one day. That Wednesday, I proceeded to start reinstalling the bumper. Before you reinstall the bumper, there's a couple things you need to install back onto the bumper cover itself before you proceed putting it back onto the car. Most noticeable is the black fender beading that goes between the gap between the bumper cover and the hood and the front fenders. So the first section I had to do was staple the beading to the lip on the fender cover. And it took about 200 or 300 staples, and luckily I have a vintage swing line stapler, electric stapler, and that made somewhat easier work out of it. The challenge was actually finding staplers for my 30-year-old stapler. Once I had that, I had to reinstall the brackets that act as a clamp. They have studs in them with very small nuts, and those are what pull the bumper back against the body. What I ended up doing is the side brackets, the studs were in decent good shape, and none of them broke. So I was able to clean the threads on that, and using new nuts, put those back into the car. The top ones, if you recall, along either side of the headlight, flip-up headlights, the studs on those had broke off. So I ended up using a combination of elevator bolts and slightly bigger nuts, drilled those out, and ground out most of the round elevator bolts so it was a slot, so it would fit neatly behind the bumper and where it meets the fender, so it would be a nice clean fit.
Rather than rivet the brackets back in, I elected to use zip ties to hold it in until I bolted the piece back in place.
Putting the beading on early last week, I also had to repair the headlight washer distributor pump that regulates the windshield washer pressure to the both flip-up headlights. This 40-year-old plastic is on this car. One of the nipples, one of the three nipples that broken off. So I had to use JB Weld to fix that and then clamp it overnight before I could put it in. So the first step was getting the pop-up headlight nozzle washers, and I bought new ones for that. I screwed those into the bumper, and once I had those in, now it was a question of just putting the bumper cover back on the car. The slots need to go above and below the headlight, the main headlight bezels, and then once you have that in, it's a matter of pressing the bumper against the car and then working from the inside of the fenders to secure all of the bolts. Again, if you want to watch how to disassemble, how that goes in, you can watch my video. I'll put a link in this video's description. Once I had the bumper in place and adjusted properly, if you've ever done this, you know body alignment is a very time-consuming process, and that took me a fair while to make sure everything was in place. So now that the bumper cover was in, I wanted to put the grille in. And I have a video out there showing how do not, if you're restoring one of these, don't buy an already assembled grille. I have a complete video on how to buy all of the parts for the lower grille on these pre-87 cars are readily available for Porsche 928s or us. You buy all of the components individually, I think for
$250,
and then you assemble them, and you've got the equivalent of a $400 grill. So that grill, I had already assembled it. You can watch the previous video. Once the grill was in place, I'm a bit of a freak, and I've had, over the years, I've hit my share of deer. So I like to put deer whistles on there, about $10, $12 from your local parts store. They're kind of like dog whistles. I've used them. I've never hit a deer in 40 years on any car that I've had the whistles installed on. So I went ahead and those of you that know me a few years back on my 84 Eldorado, I hit a deer on the way to local Cars and Coffee. So after putting on that front end once, I don't want to have to do it again. So I put those on, and then just as a precautionary, as good as the adhesive is on these, it does tend to wear out with time. So I like to put a black zip tie on, and then it really holds that in there. And this is the perfect application. It's down low, the grill's black itself, and they're really, you really don't know they're there. But it's a great safety mechanism to keep the deer away from the car. So once the front bumper was installed, I needed to work on putting the front spoiler on. Now, if you recall, my dear friend Nick, who helped me bring this car back from Buffalo, he actually had a spare spoiler that fits one of these 928S cars. And he donated this one. It had a hairline crack that he had repaired. As far as I'm concerned, for a driver quality car like this, it's a great bumper. So I'm going to use that. And so I had to go about putting that on. Now, I had ordered a long time ago, shortly after Nick got me that, I ordered the spoiler attachment kit from 928s R Us. And it includes all of the hardware needed to put one of these spoilers on. What's nice about it is all the little bags are numbered, so you know, if you look at the PET drawings for these cars, you can figure out the numbers for where these parts go. So I don't really have a good video showing how I attached it. Just know that when you look at the exploded diagram here, it's a matter of climbing underneath the car and using appropriate hardware to bolt on the spoiler. And also the other nuance is to get the scoops. There's two huge brake scoops that fit on that spoiler. You need to get that aligned properly so those are back in place. And as I drive this about 10 miles in, I don't hear anything. Seems pretty good. So we seem to be doing okay. So once I had the bumper cover back in, the grill in, and the spoiler on, I worked on putting the black headlight frames around the front bumper. Now, I noticed something wasn't quite right when I was fitting this in on the passenger side, and it turned out I actually had the lens upside down. What I thought was asymmetrical could fit either way. So that was a quick, and this was on the driving light, sandwiched between the fog lights and the turn signals. So quick observation on that, and everything fit fine. If you watched last week's video, one of the activities I did was I removed the air cleaner to tighten up the heater control valve because I had some leaking going on. And when I did that, I must have, and if you recall, I mentioned that the seal between the air cleaner and the MAF sensor was dry rotted and cracked, and you can see light through it. So I ordered that. So sure enough, I reassembled everything, came back a couple days later to move the car to get ready to put the bumper on. The car wouldn't start. Alright, so generally, I know the relays are good on the car, and I knew the car started a few days before that, so it had to be something with that switch in the air cleaner, and sure enough, I sprayed it with my electronic cleaner, Deoxit, reconnected that, and put the new seal in. Luckily that day the seal had come in, the $70 seal, and I put that in, and sure enough the car fired right up. So I got the car all clean, ready to take it out for a drive this morning. Sure enough, I go to start it. Now, I had not kept it on the trickle charger all week, and you know, with moving the lights up and down and doing other things, the power was probably a little down on the battery, and I went to start it and crank it, and it just wouldn't start. So I said, you know what, I'm going to charge the battery up fully and then take a shot at it. And sure enough, 2 hours later came out, the thing fired right up. So that's something I need to be cognizant of and keep the trickle charger on it, and see if that's truly the issue that makes it hard starting. But now that I've got the car all back together, I plan to drive it quite a bit more, as long as it's reliable enough. I knew this week I would not get that much done because I knew the bumper would take me a long time to get done. The lesson learned from this is I'm not going to pull the rear bumper. I'm going to paint it on the car. I'll remove all the trim and mask it very closely, but I'm going to sand and paint it. I want to be able to drive this car this year and get and use it for as many shows as I can until I find a buyer, if someone's interested at my asking price. And it just makes sense to keep that on it. So if I get a couple nice days here in the spring where I can just do that, that'll be my plan. But at least for now, the bumper is on here. It's not a perfect match, and what you see right now, what I still have to do with the bumper is I get a nice day or so here. I need to wet sand it with 1,000 grit, with a 1,500 grit, then 2,000 grit, and then use rubbing compound to take care of the rest. So that's the latest for this week. Not as much as I had hoped to get done. One of those weeks where you don't get as much done, but the car is back together and I can drive it to shows without it looking like some half junker. So now I can focus my attention on the interior, getting that ready, putting everything back together in the back seat area. So that's the latest and greatest. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Watching this video, please press the like and subscribe button, comment below, and be sure to check out our other videos on this subject, as well as all of the great content on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, you can call me at the number listed below, or be sure to check out our main website, guyswithrides.com.